Let's take a look at this ALEKS problem, recognizing consistency among equilibrium constant, free energy, and cell potential. So in this problem, it tells you that there's a student that is taking some data, 3 sets of data, A, B, and C, and it is asking you if the data makes sense or not, if anything is wrong. So let's take a look at how we're going to approach this problem. This problem is not as tricky as it looks like it might be. You're not actually needing to do any calculations, or you shouldn't be needing to do any calculations on this problem. We haven't been given the actual equation for this problem, the actual chemical reaction. So this is really asking how well you understand the relationship between delta G and K and E in terms of spontaneous and non-spontaneous. So let's remind ourselves, if the reaction is spontaneous, that means that we will have a negative delta G. That's what it means to be spontaneous. We will have a positive E cell, and we will have a big value of K. So that means that we're going to have a positive exponent on the 10. It's going to be 10 to something positive. And if the reaction is non-spontaneous, that means that we will have a positive delta G, a negative E cell, and a little k, one that has a negative exponent. So keep that in mind, and then let's take a look at our data. So our first set of data, we're focusing on data set A. Our value for G is negative, which tells us that this process is spontaneous. Our value for E is positive, which tells us the process is spontaneous. And I always start with those two because those are the easiest ones to see. Our value of K is little. It's got that negative exponent. So that means that this is an inconsistent data point, that K doesn't match the other two. So this isn't that bad. Let's look at the next one, at data B. So for B, our value of S is positive, so it's non-spontaneous. And our value of E is negative, so it's also non-spontaneous. Our K has a positive exponent, which is spontaneous, so that is inconsistent with the other two. Last but not least here, we have a positive delta G that's non-spontaneous. We have a positive voltage that is spontaneous. And our K is a negative exponent, which is non-spontaneous. So this time, the inconsistent number was the E cell. And so here you can see all that we're looking for is which one of these, spontaneous versus non-spontaneous, does not match the other two. So this is really not that tricky. Let's see if the next one that I get on ALEKS might be trickier. I hope I remembered that right. So let's do one more, just to make sure that there aren't any tricks. Negative delta G is going to be non-spontaneous. Big, very negative K, that's, oh, see, I already screwed up. Negative delta G is spontaneous. The very negative K is non-spontaneous. Positive E is spontaneous. So K is the inconsistent or incorrect data point. For data set B, we have a negative delta G, which is spontaneous. We have a tiny equilibrium constant, which is non-spontaneous. We have a positive value of S, that's spontaneous. So again, K is wrong. For our last one, we have negative delta G, that's spontaneous. We have a negative exponent, so that one is going to be non-spontaneous. We have a negative voltage, which is non-spontaneous. So for data set C, our delta G was incorrect. See, that's not that bad. You can do this.